Hello and a very warm welcome to this brand new edition of our show Snakes and Ladders. From one Samvat into another. We're going to Samvat 2081. But this journey that we've had, that's what we'd like to put in a capsule. And we do this every year and we're doing it again, where we look at the highs and the lows. How did the ladders stack up against the snakes in the year gone by? Whose stock rose? Which one saw a downfall? All of that is in this show. And with me, of course, my co-anchor, Cheryl. Happy Diwali, Cheryl.
Happy Diwali to you as well, Vikram. And we are back once again, just when we are all about to begin the new Samvat. Yes, this year was a bit tough, a bit challenging, but there has been a lot of positives also at play. If you talk about the negatives, we've seen multiple wars across the globe. There's been loss of life. Back home, there were many other events that were at play. Talk about general elections. We had the big general elections, and I don't think anyone would have expected to see the shift in the Indian voters' mindset.
Oh yes.
That kind of
that wasn't factored in.
That wasn't factored in.
And certainly not when it comes to the exit polls, because they showed a completely different picture. And the markets reacted to the exit polls, and then we saw that downfall happen as well.
Exactly. Yes. And from that downfall, we did see a rise coming in for the markets, because in the last 1 year, you've actually seen the stock markets go from 21,000 for the Nifty, then go right up till 23,000, then take a breather, then again take a ride back up right near 26,000 mark for the Nifty. So it's been a tumultuous year of sort that has actually been for the Indian markets, but there are a lot of factors at play.
Well, what's life if you don't have ups and downs? That is essentially life, right?
Yes.
And you're seeing that play out in the markets as much, and it did last year as well. There were the highs, there were the lows, but the resilience of the Indian growth story shining bright. Definitely, we have to look at how India has performed compared to how the world has performed, and global equities compared to what Indian equities have done. We've had a good run, and this lead up to the 25,000 mark, that has a lot of global factors that need to be considered, that it has happened against the backdrop of all these world events taking place, like the Fed, which cut rates, a whopping 50 basis points cut in September after 4 years on the trot of tightening, and that was a big one, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. But not just that, there was some uncertainties also when you talk about geopolitical front, and that also weighed on the markets, not just back home. Globally also, you saw the markets react to it. You also had the entire diplomatic row breaking out between India and Canada once again, actually. Also, there has been trouble brewing in the neighboring nations, like you have Bangladesh, where Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina actually resigning and then fleeing to India. And apart from that, how can you not talk about what exactly is happening when you talk about Israel?
Yes.
That one is a very hot place right now. It's brewing. The war is brewing out there, and that's having an impact on the crude oil markets as well.
That's definitely true. In fact, if you talk about the Israel story against Hamas, this coming on the backdrop of what was already going on between Russia and Ukraine, it had its, when you talk about geopolitical tensions in the year gone by, these are the two big conflict zones that had a telling effect on economies, and essentially when it comes to crude oil as well. As far as retaliatory attacks go, there were concerns that Iran's facilities, its oil infrastructure, would get attacked by the Israelis. But of course, we'll have to wait and watch, because the conflict is not over, and we'll have to kind of see what happens and how much of a toll it takes on the markets. These uncertainties are definitely things that the markets don't like.
Absolutely, they don't like, and along with that, you have a lot of global commodities also that react to it, right?
Yes.
You have the crude oil prices that react to it. You back home, you will have the crude beneficiaries react to it. But while we are talking about instances back home, you also had that mega elections, right? The parliamentary elections, the way how it unfolded, not like the way most of them had expected. And also one of the reasons why it could be that we did not expect such a result is because the exit poll numbers, what did they throw up? How the markets reacted to that, and then you had the actual verdict, and you saw the sharp crack in the markets.
Correct. And that, like you said, we have recovered from that point onwards. But when markets are volatile, Cheryl, what typically tends to happen is that you start putting in money to safe haven investments. And one safe haven investment that has paid off is gold. Look at the way gold prices have moved. They've literally soared. So you're seeing the equities, also the bulls taking charge of the markets, But it's like gold had a story of its own because one comes at the cost of the other, but not so much in the year gone by.
Absolutely. If you look at the gold prices back home, almost there to 80,000 rupees for just mere 10 grams of
Imagine.
gold. So yes, it's not just the Indian equity markets, but it's also gold, which has actually been able to reward people who parked their money in that asset.
It certainly is something that I wonder what's going to happen next, because there is no upper limit. The growth story of gold and its prices, people are not able to say at this time, and it's not just gold, we're talking about silver as well, but that remains for the future. What happened in the year gone by? The Indian investor continued to pin faith on the India story. We clearly like that ladder more because now we are hearing from the RBI governor as well, Shaktikanta Das. He sounds very optimistic over India's growth prospects, the positives that are outweighing the negatives so far. With the Federal Reserve now embarking on that policy easing journey, that 50 basis point rate cut, what's left now is to see what the RBI governor does, how quickly the Monetary Policy Committee is going to decide that they are going to follow in that trajectory and start the rate cut cycle, and that's going to have its own impact in the markets. But that hasn't happened so far, and perhaps that's a bit of a question mark for market participants. Like, when is it going to happen? What's the pace at which it's going to happen? And what does that mean for the financial stocks, which have had a pretty good run, haven't they?
Absolutely. But if you talk about the fact that when they will go ahead for that rate cut, just like the way how global peers or central banks have. Also, one important key point that we all should note: in the last 1 year, we've actually seen that inflation cool off. So
yes,
that's been a primary one for the MPC as well, and
yes,
for us as consumers as well, to see the inflation rate actually see a downtick. And apart from the inflation rate also seeing a downtick, what's important is the fact that the MPC has gone ahead and changed the stance. So now everyone's hoping कि कभी ना कभी तो रेट कट आ ही जाएगा.
कभी ना कभी आएगा, लेकिन कितनी जल्दी आएगा? That is the big question that everyone is wondering.
We're always greedy, aren't
We're
we?
always greedy, but the RBI governor is leaving the door open because there are concerns on food inflation. Despite a good monsoon, we are seeing food prices still move up, and which is why this big question about whether the RBI can afford to start cutting rates at this point in time or not, and that remains a big question. But amidst all this volatility, Cheryl, you win some, you lose some. And of course, what happens next? There were the pains, there are the gains, and we've seen Indian stocks move the way they have. What next? Those nifty 500 constituents. You look at the kind of gains on certain stocks, a whopping 355% gain on a stock like GE T&D. And that in quick succession, some renewable energy players, the likes of Inox, Wind, we're talking about renewable energies come up in a big way, and this stock in particular, 312% gain. And then, of course, there are so many others like Trent. Trent is a big story, retail story again, Ireda, and of course the MOFSLs of the world as well. So there is a continued trajectory of these stocks that have done remarkable work in the markets.
Yes, but when you talk about gainers, then you have to talk about losers as well, actually, Vikram, isn't it? While these counters have seen a spectacular rise over the last 1 year, there are some who've actually seen a downtick as well. Take a case in point, take a look at Z Entertainment. That one has seen a sharp knock over the last 1 year. You've seen some financial companies see a downtick, especially those small finance banks. They are the ones who've actually seen a sharp cut. So last 1 year, we've seen a lot of different trends or sectoral rotation actually play out when you look at the way how the sectors have been rising. For the matter of fact, renewable energy stocks are seeing a good uptake. You're seeing retail counters make a comeback. While on the other hand, you've seen the ones that have been marred by bad news actually get punished.
So when you talk about the pains and the gains in the markets, when you talk about the snakes and ladders in the market, this Make in India story, funnily enough, is taking shape. Even when we talk of flows, take a look at how the DIIs, the domestic institutional investors, how they've been pumping money into the cash market, the relentless selling from FIIs. And we've seen a lot of that in recent times, and that's creating some kind of concern, but it's getting more or less offset by domestic action, by DIIs. A worrying trend, though, we've traced our steps back, in a sense, to the pandemic in some ways. If you look at October this year versus March of 2020, even amidst absolute turmoil, the domestic kind of story that is emerging among investors have injected. These investors have put in anywhere between 50 and 60,000 crore rupees. And there are similar buys and sells that we've seen in this month itself. FIIs really pulling out. and we have DIIs putting us back in action. So there is no stopping the Atmanirbharta is what I am sensing.
Absolutely no stopping for the Atmanirbharta, and you've seen the FI outflows. Yes, we've seen an outflow come in. And also one of the primary factors also could be of late is the fact that you have Chinese government, Chinese central bank, and every corner of the Chinese government trying to pump up a prime of the economy, because it's been a while that the dragon has been resting. I think it's time now, it's raging, and that's the reason why you have the Chinese central bankers and Chinese government stimulating the economy, and that's the reason why once again, after a gap of at least 2 to 3 years, we've seen the entire India versus China debate come back once again.
That's a big question mark again, if you ask me, because I've been speaking to several experts, and they are suggesting that this kind of debate over whether it's about India or China right now, whether the stimulus measures in China are actually going to add up to save their real estate. Now, that's a big part of their economy, and they're not convinced yet that this much stimulus is enough. Can they pump in more? That is something we'll have to wait and watch. But even to drive up consumption, which is now coming down, which is declining in China, it is going to be an important ask. So when it comes to India or China, now India is emerging as this steady performer, a promising long-term growth trajectory.
India growth story is intact, and we have to still wait and watch how much of this China stimulus can have an impact on India growth story, whether it can derail that or no, because we are on a very, very solid, firm footing, and we'll tell our viewers just that right after the short break.
Now, we've been taking a look at what the experts have been saying about the India growth story, but the real story lies in our primary markets. You know, it's uncanny. The kind of interest that we've seen in the primary markets, the IPOs, the number, the size of it as well. Let's go a little bit further back, maybe to 2010. Now, the street, Cheryl, they welcomed the 15,000 crore rupee Coal India IPO. You remember that issue? It was a big issue. Ever since we had Coal India, we've come a long way in the primary markets, haven't we?
Absolutely. In fact, I was going to ask you, Vikram, I hope you remember Coal India's issue, because yes, we both were working at that point in time,
Yes,
and we were amazed with the fact that, oh my God, it could be, or that whole PSU company coming out with such a huge IPO, right?
Yes.
15,000 crore rupees. But from there on, we've only built on that moolah that we are seeing in the IPO market, and now the sizes that we're seeing, 27,000 crore rupees, that's the Hyundai India IPO. I must say it was also fully subscribed. It saw a healthy listing as well. Now investors are keenly watching out for Swiggy IPO. The frenzy is actually real, because you're seeing these IPOs getting subscribed like in minutes.
It is true. I mean, the IPO market has been keeping us on our feet in the newsroom as well. But let's connect with our colleague. Sharad Dubey is here. He's standing by with some interesting data that we put together about the booming market. As far as primary markets go, we've seen a lot of boom. Sharad, tell us more about this.
Well, yes, from the last summer till now, this has been the year, you could say, of IPOs, with a strong participation coming in the primary markets, and also a lot of ecosystem players also benefiting because of this. IPOs mushrooming include some large IPOs, and of course we'll point out the largest ones. The first one being Hyundai India as the largest IPO in terms of offerings, and that was almost 27,000 crore plus offering, which was well received by investors as well. Apart from that, recently listed Bajaj Housing Finance was also there. It was a 6,560 crore IPO. Also, Ola Electric from the EV space in the two-wheeler segment, that is also a large listing had come. Of course, some corrections were also there. And Vari Energies, that's a IPO size of almost 4,321 crore rupees, and that has also been listed, and that also coming at more than 50% gains in the listing day. Bharti Hexacom, a group company from Bharti Group, over there also with the IPO size, if you look at it, coming in more than 4,000 crore rupees. So we spoke about large IPOs which have hit from last summer till now. But now let's look at where the listing gain was very strong when it comes to the IPOs. And of course, there are smaller IPOs also whose listing gains have been very strong. So I'll point some of them out. The first one includes Vibhor Steel, BLS E-Services. These are some of the SME companies, some mainboard companies which have come out with strong listing gains. Also from the larger names or conglomerates, we are having Tata Technology, where 163% gains was recorded on the listing day, while for Bajaj Housing also the number was more than 130%. Also making it to the list is IREDA with almost 87% listing gain. So this is the entire picture of the IPO market, which has been very buoyant, and also a bullish sentiment has been there when it comes to the investors, and even a lot of companies had strong grey market premiums as well, which translated into strong listing day gains as well. So this is the entire IPO picture.
You know, you're talking about the frenzy in the capital markets, but frankly, if you talk about excitement, enthusiasm, participation, it is time to say an encore for the kind of huge events we've had, live events we've had. We've had Dua Lipa, we've had Diljit Dosanjh, Coldplay, we've had AP Dhillon, Backstreet Boys, Bryan Adams. I mean, that list is quite breathtaking. And we haven't had so many in the past. Now that we are having so much take place on our entertainment sector, it has scaled up in terms of growth. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely, it has. But you know, I've not been able to actually put a number to that actually, Vikram, because I must admit, and I am sure that you were also a part of that entire queue, which was on a standby to go ahead and book that ticket for Coldplay, isn't it?
That's right. But that's what I'm saying. The
Did you get it?
Yeah, sorry, what?
Big question is, did you get it?
No, I did not get it. And in fact, I was in queue and I did not make it. And I know there are several people like me, but that really tells the story of how excited and enthusiastic we are to go for these live events.
Yes.
I mean, that is definitely a ladder up when it comes to the entertainment
Yes,
sector.
and it also it's kind of it shows the shift in the consumer spending sort of trend, right? Because there was a time when we'd want to spend on clothes and mobile phones or travel, but now we want to actually also spend on concerts, and that's quite startling, isn't it?
Yes, which is why the opportunity is coming through. We are currently standing now at 21% above those pre-pandemic levels. Indians clearly took to our Diwali theme this year when it comes to live events. So yes, review, revise and rise. We've definitely seen that take place.
Absolutely, we've seen that take place not just when you talk about concerts and live events, but also there is another segment that's seeing only one way up, and that's taken the ladder and very quickly, and that has to be the quick commerce space.
Oh, yes.
And while talking about quick commerce space, how can you not talk about the E versus Q? You can guess what the E is in this time?
E-commerce versus Q-commerce, is that what we're going for?
Absolutely. I thought this time I would win at least with you, but no, clearly it's not happening, isn't it? Yes, it is the e-commerce versus quick commerce, and you wouldn't actually want to wait for like 4 to 5 days for your coffee jar to make some really good fancy coffee. You just can order it via a quick commerce portal, and it'll be at your doorstep, piping hot, in like 8 minutes or so.
In fact, since we are looking at this meteoric rise of quick commerce in the country, let's just listen in to what Milind Karmarkar, when we were speaking to him earlier, what his take is on whether we are going to see this higher rise, a higher ladder for quick commerce.
So my view on quick commerce is slightly different, in the sense that where my belief is that where quick commerce will be extremely successful is those areas where there is a high population density and high per capita income. But say you go to the tier 2 or tier 3 cities like say Aurangabad or those type of towns, what I think will happen probably is that there quick commerce is not a necessity. In city like Mumbai, quick commerce is a necessity. Like if I suddenly at the night I realize, oh, for tomorrow's breakfast I don't have a bread, I will just order a Blinkit, and I will not even think that I am paying 50-60 rupees extra. But that may not happen in the smaller towns because A, per capita income is not so high there of the significant portion of the population, and second is that population density is not there, and because of that servicing that area might become difficult. Like we see a lot of these dark stores which are very close to largely populated area. That is not the case in this thing. So quick commerce has still at least 5-6 years to grow. But beyond that, will it grow? I don't know. The jury is still out.
Right, so we've been talking about quick commerce, we talk about e-commerce, all of them actually trickle down to the retail space, isn't it, Vikram? And I did talk about this one particular stock while we were talking about the stocks that have gained through the course of the year. And it's not just been the big gainer, but this particular stock has been talk of the town, and that is Trent. This one has seen the maximum brokerage backing, to put it so. It's been in the good brokerage book. 248% change in the targets is what brokerage houses are actually penciling in when you talk about Trent. And it's not just Trent. You also have, apart from Trent, as you can see, you also have MCX, where they are expecting a change of about 211% in the target price. There's BHEL, there's Voltam, as well as Kalyan Jewelers. But Trent, I'm sure you just cannot take your eyes off that particular counter.
And when you talk about that, again, it brings us back to the entire consumption story.
Yes.
And where exactly people are choosing to park their money at this point in time, whether it's in a stock or whether they're actually going out and making that
yes.
retail therapy going for themselves. All of that is quite evident in the way certain stocks have moved. But if there are upgrades, there have to be downgrades as well, Cheryl. It's part of the story. So brokerages are not impressed, clearly, with Z Entertainment or even Paytm, for that matter, when it comes to target changes for a certain kind of stock. You have to see that when it comes to at least these two companies, isn't it?
But you know, no game of snakes and ladders, or whenever you talk about snakes and ladders, is incomplete when you don't talk about the ones that have actually added to their wealth, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Vikram, given the fact that this year, if you see the likes of Gautam Adani, Mukesh Ambani, as well as Shiv Nadar, they continue to be on the top spot when it comes to accumulating wealth. But we've also had a couple of baby billionaires, isn't it?
I like the term baby billionaires. So yes, if you talk about the billionaires over at Zepto, we're talking about Kaivalya Vora, just 21. Adit Palicha, another 22 years. What a feat to have achieved, to be part of a billionaires list. Good to see this wealth branching out among the young people of the nation, because we keep talking about our demographic dividend, and clearly it's evident when you see the billionaires list grow to this extent, where
Yes.
we're seeing some 20-year-olds become part of it.
Absolutely, and you know, it is pretty inspiring for the Gen Next actually, when they look at those who've started businesses from young and have been able to build the business and actually grow along with India. So rise along with India, isn't it? That's very heartening to note, isn't it? But it's time to eye those biggest wealth creators of the years, and we have Varun here to take us through all of that. Varun, over to you.
Definitely. So we have seen somewhat 2080 has been actually a good year for overall Indian markets, because we have seen markets hitting the new highs, and also there were many stocks which have hit new highs, and also the businesses, many of the businesses have done good, and this has resulted in an overall increase in the net worth of many of the promoters of many companies, and also because markets were all-time high, there were stocks which were performing good. So among the list, the wealth creators are more, and the people who have lost their wealth are a handful of them. Now let me start with the wealth creators of 2024. So the first name that comes is Sunil Bharti Mittal. If you look at the net worth, it is now around $26 billion. And in the year 2024, if you look, he has added around $10.3 billion to his overall net worth. That means in 2024, his net worth has actually doubled. The second name that comes is Dilip Sangvi of Sun Pharma. Now, he has added tad below $10 billion, but it is $9.7 billion to his overall net worth, and the net worth now stands at around $31 billion. Gautam Adani is at number 3. If you look at last year, that was not such a great year for the Adani Group stocks, but this year has been a turnaround for him, and he has added around $8.7 billion to his overall net worth, and the net worth now stands at around $93 billion. Next is Savitri Jindal of Jindal Group. She has added around $8 billion to her net worth. Shiv Nadar of SCL has added around $8 billion. And last but not the least, it is Mukesh Ambani, whose net worth stands over $100 billion. But the net addition in 2024 has been around $5 billion. So these were the wealth creators. Now let us look at some of the people whose wealth has actually eroded. On the first number comes Uday Kotak. No doubt his net worth is around $14 billion, but it has eroded by around $520 million. Radhakrishnan Damani, DMart was not doing that good. His net worth stands at around $19 billion, but it has eroded by around $507 million. And it was also Lakshmi Mittal, whose net worth stands around $20 billion, but it has seen a erosion of around $112 million. So if you look at the people whose wealth has actually eroded, they are a handful, but there are many people, there are many promoters, businessmen whose overall wealth has actually shown a good increase, all thanks to the market that has performed well from last Samvat to this Samvat, which has given actually double-digit returns.
Well, as we wrap up one Samvat and open up the world to another Samvat, we hope this billionaires list gets fatter with more and more people joining it, wealth grows, prosperity grows, and the ladders are many, many more than the snakes.
Absolutely, that's something that we all hope for each and every one of us and all of our viewers. So here's wishing everyone a very nice, bright and safe Diwali.